So as we walk into the Basilica, you'll notice, of course, these beautiful stained glass windows, all of which were made in France. Now this is very important to note because Father Sorin, who founded the university, very progressive in terms of educational theory, was very traditional in his tastes. He was what we would call a Francophile. He loved French things. So all of the windows were made in France, probably the largest collection of 19th century French stained glass in the world. One of the nice things about this basilica, it's very balanced, and you will see this reflected in the windows. The first set of windows that you will see are actually pictures of 4 women in one window, 4 women on the other side. Then the next set of windows are males, men. Now, it's not by accident that the first 2 male saints that you see when you walk into the Basilica come from guess what country in Europe beginning with F? So here on the left, facing the west, lower left, is St. Louis IX of France, all right? And then on the other side, over here, on the far right, lower right, is St. Ivo of Brittany. He was a lawyer. So that was very important for Father Sorin that we get that French stamp on everything right away. Most of these windows were done in the 1870s and then in the back of the Basilica in the 1880s. These were designed by the Carmelite sisters, then painted by laymen. And then they were shipped over here. Now, you can be sure that Father Sorin was very instrumental in deciding which saints would be chosen. So, over here we have St. John Chrysostom, St. Athanasius, St. Basil the Great, and St. Gregory Nazianzen. Here, maybe names more familiar would be on the top, for example, top left is St. Augustine, top right, St. Ambrose of Milan, who baptized Augustine. Lower left, St. Jerome, who translated the scriptures from Hebrew and Aramaic and Greek into Latin. And then Pope St. Gregory I, who lived around the 600. So these 4 were declared doctors of the church by Pope Boniface VIII. So here in this window of 4 women, in the lower left, we have St. Elizabeth of Hungary. You can tell she's a noble woman. She's wearing a crown. And there's a wonderful story about her. She was a noble woman from someplace in Germany, married to a nobleman. And she had a great love for the poor. And so she would take bread from her husband's kitchen, take the bread and give it to the poor. The cooks complained. You know, your lordship, the reason we keep running out of food every time we hold a banquet is because your wife is taking all the bread and giving it to the poor. You've got to do something about that. So in the little vignette, the husband is asking his wife, Elizabeth, now dear, what do you have in the fold of your garment? And she says, I will show you. She unfolds her garment and the bread turns to roses. So you can see in the larger window, do you see she's holding a bouquet of roses? But in her right hand, off to the side, she's sort of hiding the little piece of bread that she was going to bring to some poor person. When her husband died, she gave away most of the properties and converted castles into hospitals. When she died, she was buried in the Franciscan Third Order habit. And today she is known as the patroness of Catholic charities, St. Elizabeth of Hungary. This Pietà, designed by Ivan Mestrovich, or some people say Mestrovic. This was done in 1942. Ivan Mestrovich was a Croatian, and during World War II he was sought after by both the Nazis and the communists. But somehow he was able to elude them, and during the war he actually made this Pietà out of one solid piece of Carrara marble. Now you know this Pietà is very different from the most famous Pietà in the world, that by Michelangelo in the Vatican at St. Peter's, which is very dainty and quite small. This is huge and big and rough surfaces as well as smooth surfaces. This weighs about 8 tons. Now, Father Hesburgh in the 1950s invited Ivan Mesterovich to come to Notre Dame. And so he brought with him this Pietà, which originally, I believe, was on exhibition at the New York Metropolitan Gallery of Art. They brought it here, and they had to do a couple of things. They had to shore up the floor to make sure that when they landed it here, it didn't go in the basement. But they had to remove this entire wall to get this statue in here, okay? There is an exact replica of this Pietà in the Vatican Museum in bronze, which says Pietà Ivan Mesterovich, University of Notre Dame, Indiana. Holy Cross is a relatively young congregation, so we don't have a whole lot of saints like the Franciscans, the Dominicans, the Jesuits. But we do have one saint and one blessed, our founder, Father Moreau. But our one saint is this person here, André Bessette, who was born in 1870 in French Canada, one of 10 children, orphaned by the time he was age 12. Not a man of very good health. Brother André could not read, could barely write his own name, but he has touched the lives of so many people, such so that when he died in 1937 on January 6th, yet over 1 million people paid their respects to Brother André. His feast day in the United States is January 6th, though in the Congregation of Holy Cross we celebrate it on the 7th of January. So, we have many murals here in the Basilica. One of my favorites is Our Lady of Lourdes. Now notice what country this is in. This is in what country in Europe?
France.
So again, Father Soren had a great devotion to Our Lady of Lourdes. It was his dream during his lifetime to reproduce the grotto of Lourdes, but he didn't have enough money. So he told Luigi Gregori, the painter, at least paint a scene from the apparition of Our Lady of Lourdes to Saint Bernadette Soubirous, which took place in the 1850s in France. So here we have a lovely picture of Saint Bernadette holding that lovely candle before Our Lady in the grotto in Lourdes, holding a rosary. It's one of my favorite murals here in the Basilica. It was only after Father Soren's death that they were able to actually fulfill his dream to build a grotto, which is not the actual size, which would be way too big, but 1/7 the size of the grotto in Lourdes in France. So here we have the East Door, or the Memorial Door, where we commemorate those who died in World War I, students who graduated from the University of Notre Dame, and their names are listed here, all right, as a way of commemorating the sacrifice they made for our country. And so we have above this door, our gallant dead in glory everlasting, but more famous is God, country, Notre Dame. These men who died for our country, graduates of Notre Dame, and believers in the Lord. God, country, Notre Dame. This was constructed, I think, in about 1924, and every year on Memorial Day, when students were still in campus, in classes in those days, they would have a mass outside, gathered here at the Memorial Door to remember those who died in World War I. And we have two statues here. One is Saint Joan of Arc, patroness, one of the patronesses of we know what country, France, right? Soldier. And then Saint Michael the Archangel, who is the patron of soldiers. All right. Okay, now we come inside. So once we enter through the Memorial Door, we continue the theme of the memorial. And we have on the ceiling here symbols of the various regiments that these Notre Dame men served in during World War I. But what is most interesting is this light fixture. This is really a helmet worn by Father Charles O'Donnell, who served as a chaplain during World War I. And this Father Charles O'Donnell later became president of Notre Dame, and he also wrote the words to the alma mater, Notre Dame Our Mother, which was sung for the first time at the funeral of Knut Rockne.